in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper, and that will be the first we'll be looking at. The lead story on the Daily Trust newspaper talks about MD's suspension. NPA panel, mom, 8 months after. So recall that committee was set up to investigate the MD of NPA, Zainab Bala, over allegations, Hadiza Bala rather. For real. Wow, Zainab Bala seemed to stick to my lips. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm talking about Hadiza Bala, and 8 months down the line, we haven't seen much, come out from that. There's no report yet. Now the committee may work till 2023. That's according to Amechi, the Minister of Transport. And then the next one right there says unstable leadership affecting agencies' productivity. That's experts saying. We can't say anything now. It's Hadiza Bala, her aide, is saying. Now it's politics at play. That's according to stakeholders. So you'd see also an infographic of all the events, leading to her suspension until date, and also the terms of reference of all the committee members. So you might want to grab a copy of the Daily Trust newspaper to have a full details about this story. Below that, you see inside PDP's 6-year battle in opposition. You'll find the details of that story on page 39 of the Daily Trust today. And then you also have how son hired assassin for 110,000 to kill father in Niger.
My goodness.
That's quite sad, really.
Sorry.
After 2-day prayer session, the Tijaniya leaders hold lecture in Kano. And then you find also the next story there says 3 officers die as police van crashes in Abuja. So these are the stories on the front page of Daily Trust today.
Okay, let's take a look at all the stories on the Blueprint newspaper this morning. The lead story there, Matawale on Zamfara massacre. Political bandits, yellow journalism threatening my government. Quite interesting. And the Radis, the orders reconstruction of villages destroyed by bandits. Yeri led APC, Emir's lament killings. Khan slams federal government. You'd also see gunmen kill Benue monarch in his sleep. That's quite very tragic. You find the details of that story on page 6 and page 9 of the Blueprint newspaper. Now, other stories, supporting Southeast presidency will be Buhari's greatest legacy. This is according to Okechukwu. Commends PDP for clarification on zoning. Olubadan, kingmakers meet Tuesday on 14-day ultimatum. Osun chief, 8 others in trouble over possession of human parts. That's quite controversial. You find the details of that story on page 13 on the Blueprint newspaper. Ogun, 38-year-old man stabs mistress, husband to death. I saw that story trending on social media everywhere. You'd also see the details of that story on page 20. And then furore as Garki natives reject installation of traditional ruler. Nigerians pay 565.2 billion for electricity in Q3 of 2021. Federal government's new excise tax will cripple beverage subsector, Nigeria Labour Congress warns. And you'd also see CBN disperses 363 billion to household SMEs under targeted credit facility. Senate tackles BP over 14.7 billion hidden PHCN privatization proceeds. BP faults audited accounts. You'd also see my prison experience ordained by God. That's according to former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and you'd find the details of that story on page 20 on the Blueprint newspaper. These are some of the major stories on the Blueprint.
All right, take a look at the Guardian newspaper this morning. The lead story talks about 1 year after FG's auto gas plan fails to fly ahead of subsidy removal. You'll also see the lead, what do you call it now? The riders there says, planned 1 million gas-powered vehicles elusive as subsidy removal looms. The next one, major independent marketers desert scheme as auto gas sells for 400 naira per litre. FG sets aside 250 billion naira for vehicle conversion to begin pilot scheme in 12 states. And then you see also other stories beside the big picture there. Says 1.23 million telecoms subscribers join network as internet growth slows. On page 5, military squandered $15 billion on arms deals. That's CDD claiming. You would also see the next story there says, suit crisis. Wike makes broadcast, declares 19 illegal refineries, kingpins wanted. And then you would also see the next one, Senate unearths 14.7 billion naira PHCN money hidden in banks. The big picture shows you the dance at the opening ceremony of the Africa Cup of Nations 2021 football tournament at State in Yaoundé, Cameroon there. And then below that you see Tinubu informs Buhari Osinbajo of 2023 presidential ambition. And that's according to a source. Well, the conversation is getting louder.
Hot, right.
Yes. All right. Well, these are the stories that made headlines on the front page of The Guardian.
Okay, let's take a look at other stories on the Punch newspaper. The lead story there, enforce compulsory vaccination for local government, state workers, federal government tells governors. And the riders, National Primary Health Care Development Agency urges states to set up mass vaccination sites in markets. Others, vaccination grounds at 4.2%, 38 deaths recorded first week of January. You see other stories. Grandpa, Brazil returnee, undergraduate arrested with cocaine, tramadol, cannabis. I removed my second testicle to kill sexual urge. UI 500 level medicine dropout. So that's quite very... You see the details of that story on page 13 of the Punch newspaper. Commercial bus driver stabs lover's husband to death in Ukun. Akeredolu vows to end herdsmen attacks in Ondo. You'd also see other stories. Federal government excessive borrowing from CBN threatens exchange rate. Others. That's according to a report. Senate probes 14.7 billion PHCN privatization fund in secret accounts. Capital importation falls by 1.68 trillion, says CBN. You'd also see on page 2, federal government issues Lassa fever alert. Death toll hits 102, cases now over 4,000. Wow, that's quite huge. Okay, these are some of the major stories on the Punch newspaper this morning.
Well, all right. Well, quite interesting. With the last one that you read, one of the stories that you read of the Punch newspaper comes to me with some kind of mixed reaction. The one saying that he removed his testicles to kill sexual urge. I'm just thinking how, and this is a medical student, right, at 500 level who dropped out. So maybe if we may just take a glance at that story, because I'm really curious. He says, 44-year-old Teheman Anongo, who dropped out of the University of Ibadan as a 500 level medical student, says he castrated his second testicles. Now, according to the Punch, the story of Anongo, who became a cat pusher after dropping out of school and removed one of his testicles, several people, including his classmates at UI, supported him after the report. Now, on why he removed the testicles, he had said that, well, let me quote him now. He says, "You know how the issue of sexual urge torments one when you don't have a wife, coupled with your religious beliefs. I am someone deeply involved in a religion, and I read about Origen Adamantius, one of the early church leaders from Egypt, who paid to be castrated so that he will not be bothered by sexual urge." Why?
My goodness.
I mean, why? Speaking with our correspondent on the according to the Punch newspaper now, he said he did that, and he has he just don't want to be disturbed, you know, and all of that.
This is very absurd.
I think
when you look at it.
I'm feeling like there's some kind of mental health issue
Exactly.
here.
I was about to actually say that. He sounded a bit deviated, if I may say so.
And I'm really wondering whether he got advice from his religious leaders, you know, who
No.
who he said, you know, he wants to be a devoted, you know, Christian, so to say, and so you castrate yourself.
But is that really the way to go about being a devoted Christian?
I'm sure that's not the way to go about it, because the truth is, okay, you have castrated yourself, right? So that you be a devoted Christian. Then what happens to other issues that you are grappling with? I mean, hatred, issues of envy, issues of lies, you know, these are, yeah, these are all sinful acts, you know. So what happens? Those are things that happens in your mind. So are you now going to kill yourself?
Kill yourself,
or
exactly.
maybe remove your brain, you know, and stop it from thinking?
No, this is really absurd, and no.
I think that people need to understand, you know, religion and the tenets thereof, you know, for them to be able to, you know, serve God the way God should be served. But that's just on one side. Then let's take a look at other interesting stories. This morning we are seeing that the Daily Trust newspaper leading with the story of the suspension of Hadiza Bala, the former MD of the Nigerian Ports Authority, NPA. And it's surprising really to know that after 8 months, no report as far as that is concerned, that investigation, you know, is concerned. And the minister is saying that the committee will work till 2023. What does that mean? Which committee works for more than 3 years? I mean, this suspension happened, okay, yeah, let's just say 2 years. Okay, so 2 years. In 2023, this issue will be about 2 years.
Right.
And so the committee will continue
To work.
with their investigation
You know,
till 2023.
You know, some actually say it's more political than what we are actually seeing from the outside. But, you know, the issue of politics, you know, interfering in some of these Nigerian agencies, and it's really crippling the way these agencies should actually function.
Yeah, and actually demoralizing, because you find that sometimes you find people who are actually passionate about Nigeria and making things work.
Right.
You know, so they are appointed, they get the opportunity to work, and then they try to do their bit and to make sure that things work the way that they should. And then politics, you know, they get engulfed into politics and all of that. And that's a major issue. We should be able to, you know, define the lines and say, okay, this is where politics stops, and this is where we need to be up and doing in the interest of the people.
You know, in the case of Hadiza, I am really glad that quite a lot of people appraised her well, because people said she was actually doing well, but circumstances crippled in and she was suspended. And up till date, we've not really heard what's up with the whole committee and all of that.
Yeah. All right, now let's take a look at also another story of interest. On the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, on page 35, you would find a story that talks about a son hiring assassins, for 110,000 to kill his father in Niger.
No. Not again. Are we really hungry, or have our morals really gone down the drain? I really don't know what's happening. I don't know.
It's a crazy world, Z. It's a crazy world. People do all kinds of things. This was exactly how we heard some time ago about a couple that sold their child.
A baby.
For 50,000 naira.
50,000.
I mean, how desperate can one really get, to begin to think of things like that and to do things like that? It's really sad. The life of a human being cannot be bought. I mean, you didn't give that life, so why are you selling it? So it's really crazy,
terrible.
When you see such stories. So if you're curious, just like me, maybe you should pick a copy of the Daily Trust and have a glance, at that story. It's on page 35. Also, you have other very, very interesting stories here, but we'll take a look at some more, but shortly after this break. Please stay with us.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. Now let's take a look at other stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. The lead story there, NLC mobilizes for protest against hike in petrol price. The riders' action plan for January 27th, and then the TUC takes decision electricity tariffs January 20th. As I just saw this, in my mind, I'm saying, please do not hike petrol price, because already people are already struggling with the one we're having right now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when you do that, what do you expect? Even though government is saying that, look, we are making plans to, cushion the effects of removing the subsidy and the consequent increase in the price, of the of fuel. But again, if you think about these solutions that the government is proposing, is it sustainable? That's one of the things that experts are saying, that look, these solutions are really not sustainable. If you say you want to share fuel subsidy, what do they call it now? That word that has become a buzzword in this recent times, since the COVID-19 came. Palliative, palliative. Fuel subsidy palliative, we've heard that. And it's more like the cost, how much, is going to cost government to do that palliative stuff is, more than double, what the government is actually spending on the subsidy. So what's the point? Analysts are of the opinion that maybe we should think about setting up refineries, our own refineries, get them to work, before taking such decisions. That way the impact is not going to be much on Nigerians. Now, another one closely related to this is the story on the Guardian newspaper this morning that talks about the FG's auto gas plan that failed to fly ahead of the subsidy removal. Now, recall that about more than 1 year ago, the government said that, look, they are going to begin to make gas more available. On the contrary, actually, we've even seen the cost of gas
hike
over the past 1 year.
Very alarming.
So again, what are we talking about? Auto gas. if you look at the riders, it says, for instance, the planned 1 million gas-powered vehicles elusive as subsidy removal looms. Now, the major independent marketers desired scheme as autogas sells for 400 naira per litre. Now, FG set aside 250 billion naira for vehicle conversion to begin pilot scheme in 12 states. So, where are we? Well, your guess is as good as mine. We are nowhere as far as that is concerned. And so when you begin to come up with policies like, the removal of fuel subsidy, it definitely means more difficulty for Nigerians. We know how fuel affects virtually everything that we do, part of our economic life in this country. Once you have an increase in the cost of in the price of fuel, every other thing goes up. Every other thing goes up, because you have to think about the tomato seller in the market, how she has to move that tomato from the market, to her selling point. And also, if you talk about people selling sugar cane or whether keke napep riders, I mean, these are the people at the very base of our economy. These are the people that get things going. And so if they cannot access fuel, at a much cheaper price, then it means that ordinary Nigerians will have to pay, more. And that's disaster, because if you look at the income is not increasing. If anything, we are seeing more, the decline. And in fact, unemployment itself is on the rise, and all of that. So these are things that need to be considered. It's going to be more difficulty for Nigerians if we go ahead, and the NLC seem to be ready, for a show.
I really think they should hold this through, because we like to talk about we're going to hold protests, or strikes, and then at the end of the day, somewhere, somehow, you get to hear, oh, okay, we're drawing back and all of that. I really hope that they hold this through, and this really helps, cushion all of the effects that we're going to see in the long run.
Focus should be on getting the refineries to work. I mean, these promises have been made decades ago, and till today, we're still talking about the same thing. What is stopping Nigeria's refineries from working? We always talk about the Dangote refinery coming on stream, but hey, is Dangote refinery the only refinery that we're going to be, relying on in Nigeria? I know that that's going to have an impact, definitely, on our economy, but again, we need to have options, isn't it? We do not want to have, let's not have a monopolistic situation, here, because when you do that, it seems to me that we'll still remain in the woods, so we need to look into doing that. Well, this is how far we can go on our newspaper headlines for today. Reviewer is unable to join us for the show today. Now, let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll be taking a look at other discussions, economic discussions on the program, talking about the investment made so far as agriculture and food is concerned in terms of importation, and how much we're dealing with in terms of food inflation. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they must look at the
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that